Sauron was become now a sorcerer of dreadful power, master of shadows and of phantoms, foul in wisdom, cruel in strength, misshaping what he touched, twisting what he ruled. Lord of werewolves, his dominion was torment. Before Sauron ever even led the creation of the rings, before he constructed the One Ring himself, well, he was already an elite class when it came to power. I mean, he was one of the Maiar, a servant to Morgoth. Sauron was just on a ridiculous level in Middle-earth. He was something else. But just how powerful was Sauron? How did he gain that power? What powers did he have? More importantly, how did he lose that power? How did he try to win it back? Well, let's get into it because we don't got no time to waste.
Fly, you fools!
But before we get into it, we'll make sure you go subscribe. Only 20% of y'all are subscribed, so make sure you go change that. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. It helps us out a ton, and plus you get to see awesome videos every single day. And if you already are subscribed, well, y'all are amazing. Y'all are just crushing life, so just keep on killing it. Now let's get it. So the first thing we need to talk about here is understanding the power hierarchy that Tolkien established in Lord of the Rings. Tolkien created essentially a monotheistic world in Lord of the Rings, where Iluvatar created the world Arda, and really the whole universe, Ea. There's also the Anor, the Holy Ones, created beings who helped in the creation of the universe. The Valar were the ones who came into the west of Arda. And then underneath them were the Maiar. These are the servants and the helpers of the Valar. And this is where Sauron is. Now, the way that these Maiar work, well, they were each associated with a particular Valar. Sauron, back then called Mairin, was associated with Ale, the great inventor. Ale was responsible for creating the substance of which the world was composed, and Sauron was his greatest student. He was a great craftsman, super big into arts and crafts, a big-time jewelry maker. You know those little ring-making kits? Yeah, Sauron would have been all over those. But here's where things get interesting, because Sauron wasn't always aligned with Ale. He eventually went to join with Melkor, the Valar who turned against Eru's plans for the universe. Basically, think Satan, turned against God, became the big bad guy of the story. And Melkor is kinda unique, different from all the other Valar. Like everyone else had one particular area where they specialized in, the sky or the water or fire or whatever. Melkor, he was able to dabble in a little bit of all of it. His power wasn't bounded or limited, and this might have ended up affecting Sauron as well. It's pretty safe to assume that Melkor was able to give some of his power to Sauron, place some of his power inside of Sauron, just like Sauron is able to place some of his power inside of the Witch King. And Melkor was known to do this. In fact, he actually handed out a whole lot of his power to his underlings or servants, even putting a lot of power into Middle-earth itself. And this theory of Melkor having a bit of power in every area, and then giving power to Sauron, well, it actually explains a lot. It explains why Sauron is able to control and manipulate fire, having heat literally radiate off from his body. Why he's able to control and manipulate lightning, even why he's able to control weather on all fronts, sending out great dark storms across all of Middle-earth whenever his armies were moving. Those are things that are similar to Manwë's abilities, similar to Varda's abilities. He is known as the necromancer, summoning up spirits from the dead, which would be like the powers of Mandos. These are all powers that he probably got from serving under Melkor, since Melkor had parts of the abilities of all the Valar. So Sauron increased his power by joining up with Melkor. He later increased his power even more with the creation of the One Ring. He even gets more powerful the more evil there is in the world. And so he's reached the point where even somebody like Gandalf, another Maiar, seriously doubts that he can beat him. They might have been equal in the beginning. They both are Maiars. But Sauron just got more powerful. It's possible that all the wizards combined can't even beat Sauron. They were all teaming up together. But while we've talked about how powerful Sauron is, we haven't actually talked about what exactly his powers are. Well, for starters, Sauron is a sorcerer. We know that for sure. There are plenty of times where he's referred to as a necromancer. He'll use illusions to trick his enemies and manipulate and torment them. He's also known to twist and manipulate and misshape everything that he touches, which would actually lead to one of his titles, Lord of Werewolves. And no, they're not werewolves like you might be thinking. That could get kind of weird. But instead, they're twisted, tormented beasts, where Sauron is able to take dark souls and shove them into animals, forcing them to serve him. Sauron is also a shapeshifter, able to change his form at will. He can turn from a snake to a wolf to a monster to back to a snake to a vampire to his original form to whatever else he could desire. Comes in pretty handy in a fight, but he'll use his ability to shapeshift and disguise himself as a regal gentleman. Go out there and mingle with the elves and with the humans and manipulate them and turn them to his plans. Only thing is, this specific ability to appear handsome and regal went away by the time of the Lord of the Rings, as Sauron was forced to only appear in forms that mimicked his inner heart's desires, which weren't that great. And then there's Sauron's greatest ability, the One Ring and dominating other people's minds and wills. Now, Sauron was charismatic, he was charming, he was persuasive, but when he needed to, he could just forget all that and dominate the minds of others. He used it on the humans, and specifically the 9 ring bearers. He tried to use it against Galadriel and the elves, but it's really when he puts the One Ring on where this gets kicked up a notch. It basically amplifies his powers, allowing him to peer into the minds of all of their ring bearers and control their thoughts. And it's even so pervasive that Sauron's mind domination power is in the ring itself. That's why it's so hard to destroy the ring, because you're fighting against the ring itself and Sauron himself. He's also got the ability to not just dominate others' wills, but project his own will. It's what allows him to control all his armies of orcs and trolls without ever even leaving his tower. So, how powerful is Sauron? Well, let's put it this way. Sauron is Morgoth's second in command. Basically, look at it as Satan's chief demon. But then Morgoth got banished from Middle-earth. Satan gets banished from Earth. And Sauron steps into his place and takes over a lot of his power. So now Sauron, second in command to Satan, this incredibly evil being, is able to still stay on the surface of the earth. He's able to gather up tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of goblins and orcs and trolls and monsters. So he can do so much more than just tempt souls and persuade minds. He can actually wage war on the physical world, assault and destroy entire kingdoms. Yeah, that's Sauron, and he is insanely powerful.